Hi, my name is Katie Gray, and I'm going to talk about Module 11, Case Study Every Day Counts. Mr. Rhodes, first-year principal at Golden Oak High School, met with Superintendent Dr. Newman upon accepting his new role as principal. Dr. Newman expressed several problems that Golden Oak High School had that he wanted Mr. Rhodes to evaluate, one of them being the issue of school attendance data. 85% of the student body had missed 10 or more days of school. Dr. Newman explained to Mr. Rhodes that the district's attendance policy would what the district's attendance policy was and how it followed the state requirements. Students are allowed excused absences for illness, death of an immediate family member, inclement weather, or a valid reason excused by the principal with prior approval. Teachers have the authority to subtract 10 points from a student's final grades who have 5 or more unexcused absences. Mr. Rhodes began evaluating the issue by selecting 5 students who had missed over 10 days of school. All these students had different circumstances as to why they missed so many days of school. During his investigating, Mr. Rhodes discovered that the athletic director, a few teachers, and the school counselor played a role in the attendance problem. Mr. Rhodes now has to develop and advocate for a problem that will support school improvement and school development. Mr. Rhodes needs to evaluate the reasons for Golden Oak High School poor attendance data and implement a plan to improve student attendance. Facts. People: Mr. Rhodes, first-year principal at Golden Oak High School. Mr. Newman, superintendent. Teachers: most have been there for at least 10 years, although some, like every year, they hire 1 or 2 new teachers. School counselor, athletic director, 965 students, 659 missed 10 days or more, not much diversity but few Hispanic and Asian students. 5 specific students who missed 10 or more days: Karen, 11th grader, Tyrone, 10th grader, Christina, 9th grader, Carl, 10th grader, John, an 11th grader and football player. Most parents have a 1 to 2 hour commute to work. Unknown facts: how many teachers correctly record attendance and how many do not? Is it an attendance secretary or just an attendance counselor? Role of the attendance counselor, and race and gender of school employees. Facts about the place: community involvement with school, especially football. Suburban community adjacent to a suburban community. That should be metropolitan community. Mainly middle-class families. Few live in poverty and few are high-income families. School has a good relationship with the juvenile court and social system. Specific location, size of the town, and unknown physical location or physical condition of the town. Program: there are 11 sports, 31 different clubs, grades 9th through 12th. Students report to homeroom, unsure of what day. We can assume it's public, and we're unsure of what special education programs they have. We're also unsure of how many students participate in these different clubs and activities. Yes, the decision could be damaging to the stakeholders. The community can be affected by having a less educated youth who have poor attendance rate. Students with low attendance rate and grade will be less successful in the long run. Parents need to take responsibility for sending their children to school. The district could be in legal trouble with state for low attendance rate. Mr. Rhodes' job could be on the line if the attendance rate is not improved. Teachers, counselors, and the athletic director are playing a part in the attendance problem and could affect their job. No, all stakeholders have not been consulted at this time. Yes, I can learn more about the situation, but have enough information to make a decision. Legal and ethical issues. Sorry, this was skipped earlier. There's a common doctrine that gives states the authority for the welfare of children. Education is vital to the welfare of the states, so states can require the parents send their children to school. That's a law. Education is not an unreasonable or arbitrary exercise of state power, so law. Educated individuals make a difference in society, so it's ethical to have your students go to school. Athletes should not get special treatments. There was a situation where the athletic director made special attendance excuses for athletes. Staff members need to follow the district's attendance policy. That is also ethical. Okay, options and consequences. So 1 would be no action. Mr. Rhodes doesn't develop and implement Develop a school improvement plan for attendance. Number 2, he could conduct a meeting with entire staff and remind them about attendance policy. 3, he puts staff members who are assisting with the attendance problem on an academic plan. 4, implement an attendance policy for students to be able to participate in activities. 5, develop an improved attendance process. 6, communicate with social services and the juvenile court to help contact parents about truancy. 7, create attendance meetings with parents and students after 10 days have been missed. Evaluating these options. So number 1, no action. Mr. Rhodes doesn't develop a school improvement plan for attendance. There's really no pros to this. The cons are Mr. Rhodes could lose his job and no improvements are made with attendance, which affects all the stakeholders involved, and those consequences were listed earlier. 2, he could conduct a meeting with entire staff and remind them about the attendance policy. This reminds staff of their role in keeping up with attendance, gives Mr. Rhodes an opportunity to correct mistakes with various staff members have been making. The cons is most staff has worked there for a long time and may not change their ways based on one meeting. The attendance procedure at the high school seems a little complicated, and this does not fix that issue. He could put staff members who are assisting with attendance problems on an academic plan. These staff members will no longer let attendance issues slide. This only addresses a few of the stakeholders involved. The attendance procedure at the high school seems to be a little complicated, and that doesn't fix this issue. Teachers have been at the school for years. This could prevent a positive relationship with Mr. Rhodes and his staff. He could implement an attendance policy for students to be able to participate in activities. So the school has many clubs and activities. Requiring students to have specific attendance would encourage them to come to school. This would also require the athletic director to follow the attendance policies. Cons, this only addresses a few of the stakeholders involved, and it doesn't fix the complicated attendance procedure this high school seems to have. Develop an improved attendance process. So give each staff a specific role in attendance. Principal and attendance secretary or counselor decides how attendance is entered. Teachers take attendance each classroom, not just homeroom teachers. So each time they have a class, they take attendance. Teachers can take off points for late work rather than final grade. Cons, this still only addresses a few of the stakeholders involved. 6, communicate with social services and juvenile court to help contact parents about truancy. This gets social service and juvenile court involved and can help Mr. Rhodes convince students and parents that they need to come to school. Again, this only addresses a few of the stakeholders. It doesn't fix the complicated attendance procedure at the high school, and it's not a long-term solution. It's just helping with the students that have a high attendance rate at this time. And it's also not a preventative solution. Create attendance meetings with parents and students after 10 days have been missed. This could help encourage parents to make sure their students come to school. Cons, again, this only addresses a few of the stakeholders. The attendance procedure is still a little complicated and doesn't fix that issue. It's not a preventative solution, and it's not really a long-term solution either. So our best option would be 4 and 5. Mr. Rhodes needs to first develop and implement a simplified attendance procedure for his staff. Each class period, the teachers have a new set of students. They take and report attendance to the secretary or counselor, depending on who's in charge of the attendance. The case study mentioned that it was an attendance counselor. If it is an attendance counselor, it seems a lot for a counselor to do attendance plus their counseling of their students. So having an attendance secretary entered, if not already, into the school would be helpful. If a teacher forgets, the attendance secretary or counselor can remind them to do so. This will keep teachers accountable for taking attendance correctly and consistently. So say, your first hour teacher doesn't mark a student absent, but second and third does. The attendance secretary or counselor can contact that teacher and just ask if a student was there or not and get a correct attendance for each student at the school. When a student is absent, the attendance secretary or counselor will report it as excused or unexcused. Special circumstances will be determined by the principal. To keep students more accountable for their attendance in order to participate in sports, clubs, and activities, they must have a certain attendance record. This would make sure all stakeholders are involved. Implementing this decision, Mr. Rhodes would inform his staff of the new attendance procedure. So, attendance secretary documents excused or unexcused absences. Teachers take attendance each hour or class period. Teachers have the option to take late points off of an assignment for students who had an unexcused absence. I think this is a better idea, and to replace the 10 points off for the final grade for the students who have high attendance rate. Specialty attendance decisions are up to Mr. Rhodes based on parent meeting. 2, parents and students are informed about the new attendance policy for students to participate in clubs, activities, and sports. I think by making an attendance policy for clubs, activities, and sports, as well as having the late points off for unexcused absences, will help students who are involved in these activities and also engaged academically and care about their grades to come to school, unless they have an excused absence. There will most likely be some pushback and some issues when first implementing this plan. Mr. Rhodes needs to advocate for this plan for the remainder of the year and then adjust as needed the following year. Thank you for watching Module 11, and have a wonderful day.